Hey TV fans, Bored now, back with you on this video. I'm going to be talking about Succession Season 4, Episode 10. It is called With Open Eyes. Full spoilers from the start of this review. Of course, it is the season finale, not just the Season 4 finale, but the series finale, the last ever episode of Succession, bar any spin-offs, which I guess is possible, but this is a definite end to the show, and it's a fitting ending to the show. I'll say that straight away. I had a good time with it. The first half was mostly set up in many ways, but there was some enjoyable stuff in the first half, and then we built to the really big dramatic board meeting and the way the vote was going to go down. There's one or two twists in the tale along the way, which I enjoyed. It's always a bit funny because season finales, especially of such an acclaimed show like this, they always get a lot of hype nowadays, and you see so much about them online and different fan theories. So it's always a bit weird when you watch them first time around and it's like, oh, okay, that was the finale. And like, I know it was a good episode, it's an episode I enjoyed, and as I said, in many ways it's a fitting finale to this show. It does justice to what the show was, but it's always hard to really judge how good it was on the first go around. Like, on the first go around, maybe you think, yeah, that was good, but could it have been a bit better in some ways? I think maybe it could have done. But another thing I think about seasons finales, which I've said before, is a lot of times they don't have to be spectacular. They don't have to be like the greatest episode of the show or that kind of thing. In many ways, like, the season finale should just settle things down and like stick the landing and just like tie things up in quite a satisfying way. I don't think they have to be like the biggest like game changing episodes, but I would say it's a very good season finale. I'm just, having only seen it once and all the talk around the show, it's hard to really at this point say, yeah, it was fantastic, it totally delivered, all that kind of thing. But this is one of the best shows of the current era of TV, and this season hasn't disappointed. You've got some mammoth episodes in there and some great drama. I think the standard of acting has really gone up this season as well. It was already very good, but like Kieran Culkin, for example, in the last few episodes has really taken his level of acting to a new level, I think. Like, just the sad plight of Roman these last few episodes and the way he's got that across, and just him slowly breaking down and coming apart at the seams. He's been really impressive in this season, as has Sarah Snook as Shiv. I think a lot of the stuff with her and Tom, like, their scenes have stolen many episodes this season, and that's fitting because of the way the finale goes. And I do have a little bit of a sense of what might have gone down, but just to get into it, because the first half is they're trying to put everything together. Like, at the start of the episode, Kendall gets a call that Stewie isn't in, like, he doesn't seem to have his vote, but he's confident he can still get it. So, like, at the start of the episode, there's a little bit of competition with him and Shiv to try and get Stewie on board, like, each side. And they also hear that Roman, who went missing after the whole end of the last episode, then he's at the mother's, so Carrie's place, and they both go down. And this is very in tune with the characters of this show. Then, especially Kendall, like, he, in a way, he doesn't really give it that much of a crap about his brother and that he's in a vulnerable place and could be like seriously injured. He just wants to make sure he's got his vote, like, and that's the way to sum up at times this episode. Then it is sort of business as usual, even though there's all this other stuff going on around them. But they both separately go to the mum's place. And there's some good family stuff there. Before I get there, one of my favourite scenes, or some of my favourite scenes of the episode, is like the stuff going on with Lucas and with Shiv, but then with Tom. Because the way Shiv is just like dismissing Tom once again, like talking to him about him with Lucas, because like Lucas is inquiring about him, and she's talking about it, say there's no doubt we can rely on him to be like professional in a corporate like scenario, but he's also like a disposable like bit of equipment or something. She said, it's like, oh, whoever said romance was dead? And she's like, well, I'd say that to his face. And then when she's talking to Tom on the phone, and he's jockering for position with Lucas, Shiv is like, don't worry, I'll do my best for you. But then the real put down line from her to Tom is like when she's talking about their relationship, like, is there still something serious there? And she uses the word, if there was, it would be convenient. And you're like, oh man, that is such a sucker punch to Tom's gut. Once again, talking about him and their relationship like it's a bit of business. But also the Lucas scene with Tom later, which is fantastic, where he starts saying that Shiv is great, but like she's getting a bit too cocky and a bit too like demanding and aggressive is the whole thing, because that's almost part of the character with Lucas. Then he is meant to be this more like reserved, kind of casual, like doesn't take things too seriously, like business guy. And once people around him start buzzing and being a bit too in your face and aggressive, he gets like put off and that. So he says this to Tom, and he starts like pitching the idea that maybe Tom could be his CEO. And the way he does this is great, because he says, like, he's honest about having like an attraction towards Shiv, and I just love the phrase of like, I would like consider like having sex with her or something, or like I would like half fuck her or something like that he says, and you know, she might do it back to me, and like Tom's really awkward. But then he pitches this idea to Tom by saying, then why not go into business with the guy who impregnated her? And it's almost that idea of, yeah, Tom's like the alpha because he's the one who like actually impregnated Shiv, and he puts it to this, and this sets things in motion for like the rest of the episode and the direction it's gonna go. But so that they go down to the mothers, and the family stuff in this is like good fun. Like it maybe drags on a little bit. This is like a feature length episode, so there's probably some stuff you can cut, but it's an important part of the episode because of the way the episode returns to, like, ultimately then it is all about the Roys and them by the end of it going in together to try and like quash the deal. But them going down to the mothers, and just the way Kendall like bulldozes his way in, he walks with a bluster, which we're so used to seeing on Succession, because like he gets the news that Stewie's on board, so suddenly his mood has been lifted, and he just, as I said, bulldozes his way in and wants the answer from Roman. Roman's like bruised, and the mother has been attending to his wounds, and Roman has too much pride to make a big deal of it, and just tells them to like just go away, don't make a big deal of it. And Kendall won't leave him alone. Like, he's trying to badger him for an answer. Shiv is already there, and her and Rome are trying, or her and Kendall, sorry, are trying to score points with each other about like Stewie and getting the numbers and like the board meeting. And I love the line from the mother about, oh yeah, of course, because Kendall says it's like a big event, like the board. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, of course, such a big event, you can't miss that. And let's face it, it's not the first time in my life like dinner plans have been ruined by a big board meeting, sure. And yeah, that just sums it all up, the mother's position, where I think she has a love-to-hate relationship with her family. Like, she welcomes them in this episode. She's obviously looked after Roman, but like the way they are with each other, with the siblings like just going about their business, and the mother almost in the background with her new guy, like it almost just sums up the family as a whole, where there is like an understanding of how things operate in the family. It's just not ideal for like the perfect family, but it's almost how they know to like run things. And at this point the mother's just used to it. She's been used to it for years with Logan, and she's getting used to it with her kids as well. But I like the way she does like shame them into staying for dinner, and that's when they start to discuss things, and things take a turn because Greg calls Kendall, and there's a little bit of a tease about what he's going to say, but he says, if you can guarantee you're going to get the votes and get in, then I've got something big for you. And that's where he reveals what the plans are. Then Lucas is going after Tom. He wants Tom to be the CEO, no longer Shiv. And a lot of different things are running through my head as this plays out. Like, Kendall goes to Shiv and says, he's trying to fuck you. He's pushing like Tom as the CEO, not you. And Shiv naturally doesn't believe him at first, wonders if he's playing her. And that like crossed my mind, because you also wonder what Greg's motivation is. I don't know if it's just another power play where he thinks like if they can get the votes, then he's maybe more likely to. Because there's always been a bit of a thing with him and Kendall, where Kendall's been quite loyal to Greg, so maybe that's Greg's thinking. Maybe it's just one last power play because he's nervous about his position as well, where he thinks, because he's got the impression Lucas doesn't like him, so then he could be shut out of that side of things. So that's probably what motivated Greg. But Shiv doesn't believe Kendall at face value, so she starts looking around. She calls Lucas, there's no answer, and just this is where the drama of the episode is starting to kick in, and she eventually looks it up online, and like it's just shattered, and Roman checks as well, so he confirms it. And this is it, like they're kind of tentatively back together, the three siblings at this point, because it's like, fuck it, like he's screwing me, so I'm going back with my two brothers, and we're going to try and like steamroll the deal, and we're going to try and keep our father's company for ourselves. So then you get all different discussions about who should be the CEO, who should run the thing, and that's a really hilarious scene, like when they're, because once again there's some like fun references to like them in previous episodes, or them in the past with Logan, because like Roman says, he actually told me like one late night over drinks like recently that then he wanted me to be the new CEO, and he's referencing when like him and Logan started having contact again, like pre his death, and at a point where like he wasn't talking to the siblings, so he tries to convince them that then Logan wanted it. He told him on that night. But the point of the scene is that Logan at various points has told each one they should be CEO, like his replacement, because he was just that sort of character. He was very unpredictable, very erratic. But yeah, Roman claims this, and Shiv's line is one of the best. Like, her response is one of the best things in the episode, where it says, well, what else did he tell you? Did he tell you he was the Zodiac killer? all that he knocked off Tupac. So that's great stuff. And then Shiv brings up, then he once, told her then she should be like in line, and he did. Like that goes back to, I think it was season 1. It's either season 1 or 2, but I think season 1, like he did promise her it once upon a time. And then Kendall, of course, has a pretty strong case, because like apparently in that document he said that he wanted it to be Kendall. So there's all this stuff going on, and Kendall decides to take a swim as they discuss things, and because like he's definitely like, yeah, no, it should be me, and just their reaction, like the sarcasm from Shiv is like, oh, Roman, Kendall has an idea of who it should be, like, can you take a wild guess? So yeah, like Kendall goes for a swim. He goes over to like this little boat across the way, and you get some fun banter between Shiv and Roman, where they're like making gags about like killing each other. And this is just a moment where they actually bond, and they decide that let's go with Kendall's plan, let's back him as like the CEO. So they swim across to him, which is like a great visual, and they start buttoning up, and it's sibling banter. They let him in on the gag about like killing him and stuff, and then they go back to the house that says, we're gonna do you a meal fit for a king, and they start like making stuff and like blending things together, and they're just sort of wasted and wired, and they're just like, it's an upbeat mood. So I do like this stuff as like at the family home with the mother, but them having a rare moment of like jerking about and bonding as siblings, which you really don't see very often in the show. And it's maybe the last time we see them truly happy in the series as well. But there's some fun at the expense of like the boyfriend or husband of the mother, because like I think his name's Peter, but like when she catches it, it's like, don't touch Peter's special cheese. So then they're having fun at his expense, and once again it's like a fun scene, and you quite like them bonding, but you also realise they are being like overly cruel and stuff. So it definitely treads that fine line between the two sides. But after that, it's like they have one fun night, and then it's business as usual. And this is where the episode really starts hitting its stride as they go in. And it's like war. It's almost like the two sides, because Shiv tells Tom about then over the phone that then she knows what's going on, then because Greg told her, so he knows, trying to fuck him with Madsen, and he confirms it, and he's like, well, fuck you, because we've got the votes, basically, and she storms off. And this is just great, because it's like the secession version of two sides going to war when they both get ready, because even Lucas like drops his like cool half-assed demeanor to like, it's like, get on the phones, vote him, that kind of thing. Even he gets whipped up into a frenzy, because Tom says they know us, so they know what we're planning, so it's no longer a surprise. They can try and like snowball us. So it's just really fun to see the two sides getting ready for like this big board meeting. And also maybe the visual of the episode is actually Shiv like leading her troops in. It's like this really fascinating moment of Shiv actually for once being the leader, even though they've decided to go with Kendall as the CEO, but Shiv just leading the charge, and just how angry she is. And this stuff is personal now, so she's like very much the driving force in it. And they all start to assemble. I quite like the scene with Carolina when she speaks to Shiv and she starts saying things like, yeah, this couldn't like mark a new era? Why don't we start by getting rid of Hugo? And Shiv kind of has a nod to her and carries on her way, and like that could definitely be something. But like, yeah, why not? Like, Hugo's a little bit of a weasel, a little bit of a rat. Also, they don't really explain, like, it's not confirmed one way or the other if Madsen is the president. There's still legal stuff to go through with that, so that's not confirmed in this, because there's a bit with Connor where they're talking about him, like, starting his new, like, political career, like he has a role in another country, and that Willa has, like, a role, so they're going their separate ways just for the sake of their work, and they're sort of talking about that, how it can bring, like, the marriage closer together. But then, like, Shiv just reminds them then there's still a legal challenge pending, so it's like, you can maybe see more of each other after all if that doesn't work out. So that's just something that's in the background of all this, where if he doesn't get elected president for whatever reason, if, like, the legal challenge works, then that could change the whole dynamic once again. But the two sides lead into this board meeting when they're trying to get people together. They get Stu on board, they get a couple more. So they're confident they've got the votes, but it's a very, like, close run thing. So they get to this board meeting, and Kendall does, like, a big speech, and he does this speech of saying that this deal is, like, it's a messed up deal, it's fucked, and it's no good, so let's vote it down, let's run the company, like, as we did before. And he says, if you like this deal, you're gonna have to go through me. You're gonna have to, like, vote me out and find someone else to run it. So he's almost trying to call their bluff. So the voting starts, and there's quite a few actually, like, out of the gate who vote, like, yes to the deal. But then people start voting no, and it gets up to the point where it's pretty much neck and neck. Like 6 on 6, like Logan's brother is once again there, and, like, he doesn't really give a shit, like, he doesn't really want any part of the company at this point, so he's like, yeah, sure. But so it's nip and tuck, and it gets to the moment where Shiv has to vote, and she just can't. She walks out, she gets too emotional, and they come after her. It's like, what's going on? And this is such an epic scene in the episode. Like, Kendall just pursuing it. It's like, come on, we've got this. We've got it in the bag. You just need to give me your vote. And that's when things just get, like, really personal between the three of them. And particularly with the other two, like, against Kendall, because Shiv's just like, first of all, she calls out, like, his arrogance, because he tries to deny that he thinks that he's the one and there's no other thing. And it's like, no, you do. Because he's always played it off as it's partly just strategy, because he, like, going with him makes the most sense, rather than just fessing up that he, like, wants it, and it's a bit of an ego boost. So she calls him out on that stuff, but, like, then she also says, I just don't think you would be very good at it. And he's, like, just saying bullshit. And then things start to come out, and he mentions the bloodline, and he just explodes. It's a great bit of acting from Jeremy Strong, but he explodes. He says, you know, fuck it, I'm like the bloodline, I'm the oldest. And then Roman has a line about, well, technically you're not, like Shiv is, because... And he starts making this suggestion that he might not have been Logan's son in the first place, then it's a bit up in the air, and there's this and there's that, and he's just poking the bear a little bit, but who knows if there's any truth to what Roman is saying. Maybe he's just doing it to be Roman and, like, fuck with Kendall. And that sort of turns up the heat on Kendall, because really he just doesn't want to hear all of this, and he just becomes a full-blown psychopath in that scene where he starts choking out Roman in such a rage. He's like choking him out so much, and it, if it goes on for too long, he's gonna kill his brother. And it's a really edgy scene where you think, oh my god, what's gonna happen? Is one of them gonna die here? And Shiv sort of steps in a bit. And then like they scramble a bit more, and Roman actually ties up Kendall so Shiv can leave the room, and then she goes back to the meeting and makes a vote, which of course is a no, it's a yes. Sorry, it's a yes for the deal. So I kind of like that touch. Then Roman puts himself on the line with Kendall to stop him and to allow Shiv to get out of the room so she can go and vote. I do like that little touch. But that's it. Yeah, the deal like goes through after that because it's 7-6 with her vote. But I think they just come to the realization, or certainly Roman does, then they're better out of it at this point. It's a dying franchise, and there's just so much dirt tied up to it at this point. And that's what he says to Kendall. He just says, it is fucked. It's just like, it's just a fucking mess, basically. And that's it. And I think it's just his own way of acknowledging then, at this point, they're better off out of it. It's better for their lives. It has consumed their lives so much, and it's just better to move on. And once again, Kendall doesn't want to hear it because he's still trying to suggest things. And this once again goes back to him being like more like the dad, more like Logan than the other two, because he just doesn't know when to let anything lie. Like if he sees a potential deal going against him, he just tries everything, even when it appears as though it is dead, to try and pull things around. Whereas I think the other two are a bit more realistic about that sort of thing. That's saying, okay, that's it, let's move on. So because he goes back in the room afterward, and like Carl says to him, no, the deal's done, Roman. And we get this really somber scene of like swarming in the new regime, and so it's Tom as the CEO. Ultimately, he is Logan's successor. You certainly wouldn't have thought that was going to be the case at the start of the season, and you get like this victorious like celebration with Lucas who comes alive. He has that line about like like a Roman with my disciples, or Jesus, I think, with his disciples, he says. And he says, well, then you have the Judas, because you have Greg. And oh yeah, I forgot about the Greg Tom scene, which was really great. Like just Tom being so mad with Greg for like telling Kendall about their plan, and just like in the room they have a little scuffle, which is so full on and so intense as well. So that's another great little scene. But yeah, this stuff is just somber with like the new regime, and you see Tom already starting to put things into place. And another thing which is fitting is he asks where Jerry is, because at some point she comes in like before the meeting, and Roman freaks out about it. He's really nervous about seeing Jerry there, and Kendall tries to pass it off as like, well, she's just there because we've got to pay her off, like, so there's no legal stuff or that, and he dismisses it as that, and like it's never really confirmed why she was there, but it sort of seems that Tom plans on having her back around as part of the setup. Like that's implied because he does say, where's Jerry? And the fact that she's there probably means that's the reason, because like she's been promised probably a position by Tom, or she's been asked to show up, and that's something which is very fitting, because it crossed my mind when she walked in, and when Roman had that reaction, it crossed my mind, is Jerry going to turn out to be the winner of this thing? Is she going to be the CEO? I mean, that would have been pretty sweet to see, but no, like, I think she's going to be a part of the new setup with Tom, and that's definitely fitting considering she was so loyal to Logan and was, a big part of his team and has been like so cruelly dealt with in the last season. So to see her back on board like a new look team is really, really good for her. Really, really fitting, I think. And another thing about the Tom thing is then it makes a lot of sense considering how close he was with Logan, how he was, ass kissing a lot, but like how he was always a big part of being like a right hand man to Logan, and has been very loyal to him. So there is something quite fitting about it turning out to be Tom. I mean, who knows if he would be a good CEO or not, but certainly he's worked his way up the ladder, and I always expected like it would be an outsider at the end of it. Now, one thing that crossed my mind, and maybe I'm just overthinking things, but one thing that I considered is, like, are we meant to assume that maybe Shiv knew what was going on and she screwed her brother intentionally? Like, I don't know, it just makes me wonder why she changed her mind then. Like, is it that she had a plan with Tom all along, so it was a plan from the very start? I don't know why she would do that exactly. Like, maybe she just bought into the idea that, maybe Tom would be a better fit for what they were looking for. Or maybe just it was her way of giving it to her husband. Maybe, maybe she wanted to do it for Tom, to put him in position. Or maybe literally she just came to the idea that they weren't right to run the place anymore. And I think that's a big part of the way things go down. I also really like the scene with Logan on the videotape, like the old shots, and they're like at a dinner, like celebrating. There's a really funny moment with Connor where he's like doing like an impression of like Logan, but like as a teapot, and that's really funny. And there's something very moving about that scene because of like them getting emotional, like rewatching a more happier time with Logan and the whole staff. And you've got like Carl singing and Logan's like, you butchered it. So that's a really sweet like little scene also. But great drama at the end of the episode, and you'll have to let me know what you guys think about this, whether you think there was like a sting in the tail, like a plan between Shiv and Tom. Like, did she set it up to make Kendall think that she was on his side, only to like screw him at the last minute? Let me know what you think. It's definitely something that crossed my mind, and different things than I thought, but it's good that they went with an outsider, and I think Tom is a good point. I know a lot of people online were predicting it might be Greg, and so in a way it sort of swerved me on that point of view, because it was running through my mind that it could be Greg. And once again, it's nice and fun and makes sense. Then Tom says to Greg, you've got a position, like, because he's teasing him over Lucas hating him and how he's probably screwed, but you'll be alright. But once again, he's teasing him. It's that whole thing. But just the dynamics being reversed, where Tom ends up with all this power compared to how he's been over the years, and how he's been like Shiv's punching bag. So for him to end out kind of on top. But then you get the little moment with them where like Tom says, I've got a car waiting if you want to ride with me, and she says yes, and they drive off together, or they're in the car together, and Shiv is like, graduations, and he's like, no, none of that, and they hold hands, and once again you get the impression that they're back on track. And they all sort of, I don't know about live happily ever after, but then they're off again now, and their relationship could work out. I know there's talk of there being a spin-off with the two of them, but she may well get a position in the company now that he's running things, if things are a bit more smooth. But it's definitely in the back of my mind that maybe she was instrumental in the plan to like get Tom in. And we just see the different siblings. Roman goes to a bar, he's just devastated. But I'm relieved to see he made it out of the show. And Kendall is so broken up because more than anyone, this is his life. We see he says that when they're arguing, he says, if I don't have this, I don't have anything. And that's sadly a reality of a lot of like big businessmen. So he just goes off to like the seafront, and that's kind of the end of the episode, him looking out at the sea, and once again very downbeat, very somber, and the sea has been a big theme with him throughout the show, and like he's been almost committed suicide at one point, and is now once again very like borderline suicidal. So it's one of those endings, like I think it's meant to say he's kind of at peace there, but at the same time you could say that he's maybe having those thoughts again, and like this disappointment has put him back on the edge. But there you have it, that's the season finale. Very good stuff, I think. I'm satisfied with Tom being the successor to Logan and the way it all went down. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media. Look out for more TV reviews. I'm doing Poker Face at the moment, the Ryan Johnson show. Also me and Rachel do Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I've also just done Yellow Jackets season 2. So if you're a fan of that show, check out more on the channel. Speaking of Succession, I might go back and do the other seasons at some point. We'll see. Maybe in the future it probably would make sense to do all 4 seasons back in one, but we'll see. But thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys again soon.